All right. Welcome to the last section for the perpetual inventory moving average. Okay. So once again, this one will eliminate all colors, will eliminate everything that you need to know, because the only thing that you need to know for this one is to focus on getting the average cost. And that's exactly why all of the formulas are still going to be the same except for one key feature. Instead of having to solve for a cost per item, we are going to be constantly solving for an average cost. Okay? All right? So in this case, right, we don't care what batches came first. We don't care what batch came last. We care about getting the overall total amount and solving for the average cost here. Okay? So here, our first example is that we are looking at June 1st, where we had where we made a total purchase of 100 toys at $1.25 with the freight of 25. Okay? So we're going to pop it in right here in our inventory table, right? 100 units at $1.25 gives me 125 plus my total cost. So that's going to give me, or plus my freight to give me my total cost, which is 150. Now this is where we're thinking, well, if this is your only batch of inventory, then you need to solve for your average cost here because this is your first purchase of inventory. So in this case, I would have figured that this was $1.50, assuming that this is going to be your only batch of inventory. So in this case, right, then we end up selling 55 units. So in this case, we would have to figure out that now that I have my average cost per item, since I only have one batch and one batch only, it's going to cost me $1.50. So therefore, $1.50 times 55 is going to give me $82.50. And I need to subtract that out. So now I have a total of 45 units left at $67.50. Okay. Then we end up making a batch of inventory for 100 of them at $1.28. So in this case, we solve just like usual. 100 times $1.28 gives me 128. Plus 26 gives me a total cost of 154. And this is where I need to stop because I don't need to solve for my average cost per item for my second batch. I need to solve it for what I totally have in overall. So in this case is where I stop. And what I need to do here is I need to add up my totals. I need to take my 45 from the very first batch of inventory, add 100 to it to get me 145 units. I need to add my total cost of my beginning inventory, so what I purchased first, at $67.50, plus what I just bought at $154 to give me a grand total of $221.50. This is where now I need to solve for my average cost per item because now I have a total quantity and a total cost. I have a total cost of $221.50, and I need to divide that by my total cost, my total quantity of 145 units. So in this case, that should give me $1.5275. Okay. So then the next thing I did here was I ended up making an additional purchase of 100 toys, but this time it's at $1.30 with a freight of 27. So I'm going to plug in our numbers. 100 at $1.30 is going to give me 130. Plus 27 is going to make me 157. And I have to stop here because now I purchased more inventory. That means I need to once again recalculate all my totals because now I have a new grand total of 145 plus an additional 100 to give me 245. Okay.
I have a question. I thought we weren't doing the cost per item.
We're figuring out the average cost per item.
Which is I'm a little confused on that
So
part.
you see this blue bar right here? This right here, your 1.5275, that's your average cost per item. In this case, I'm not solving for my individual batches, right? I'm not solving for whatever my second batch of inventory for $128 plus, so 154, right? I'm not solving for that cost per item because I need to take the average cost because I need to get my grand total of everything.
How did you do the average cost?
So in this case, right, I tallied up my totals. So what I'm taking here, instead of solving for what 154 divided by 100 is, I'm adding them all together to get me a
Oh, the
grand total.
1.5.
So it's the same concept, the same here, where you're going to take the 221.50, but this time you're dividing it by 145
Okay.
to get your average cost per item.
And then we do that every time we buy or sell?
Correct.
Okay.
So in this case, I end up purchasing another 100 units. So I have now a new grand total of $378.50. And I need to divide that by a total of 245 units. So this is the number I'm constantly recalculating is the average cost per item. So in this case,
So
go ahead.
when we have a new cost per item, we disregard the last one?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, 378.50 divided by 245 should give you 154.48. Okay. So let's see what happens when we sell our inventory, right? So in this case, it tells us that we sold on the 12th of June, we sold 120 units. In this case, 120. Since we only have one batch of inventory, right? We have 245 units available, and the grand total is the $378.50, and it cost me $1.5448. So in this case, right, since I only have one batch of inventory, I'm going to take that average cost of 1.5488, and I'm going to multiply it by the 120 to get me a total of 185.39. Okay, now I'm going to subtract that out. And then this is going to, I have to recalculate it because sometimes when you subtract it out, you're not going to get the same cost per item. In this case, all right, so I'm going to, when I subtract those numbers out, I am now down to 193.11 at a total of 125 units. And I need to recalculate my cost, my average cost per item here, which you're roughly going to get about the same price. The changes for the average cost, right, depending if you haven't made any purchases, you just keep selling, it won't change that much. It won't change maybe by 10,000th or even a thousandth of a penny. So you won't see too much drastic change there. But every time you purchase, for sure you should see a change. Right? So in this case, it's still gonna cost me $1.5448. Okay? And that's what I ended the inventory with is 125 units at $1.5448. Okay? Right? So what happens when I have beginning inventory? I need to carry that whole entire value over. So in this case, because I'm doing moving average, right, I have to take it as a collective bunch. So in this case, I had 125 units, right, at $1.5448. So I'm going to carry that whole entire value over and then continue on from there. Okay? So on the 18, you end up selling 90 units. Okay, I sold my 90 units at $1.5448, which should give me a total of 139 even. Okay, 13904. We're going to subtract that out to get us our new grand total of $54.07. And we're going to divide that by 35 to get our new average cost. This time, you're still at 1.5448. Okay? You need to constantly keep figuring out what it is every time you purchase and every time you sell something. Okay? All right? So then we end up making an additional purchase of 100 toys at $1.32 with a freight of 25. Okay, so there you go. 100 added 32, 132 plus 25 or 26, excuse me, which is going to give you 158. So in this case, we need to stop here, not solve for the cost per item, but solve for the average cost per item by tallying up what we have. So in this case, I have a new grand total of $212.07 at a total quantity of 135 units. So this is where my quantity, my average cost per item changes because I just purchased more inventory and it cost me much more than what I previously purchased them at. So in this case, it increased it to $1.5708. Okay? So that's my average cost per item. So then I end up purchasing another 100 toys at $1.35 with a freight of 27. So I'm going to pop that in there, right? We're going to do what's usual, solve for the purchase price and total cost. And this time, because I made another purchase, I need to add up those totals to solve for another average cost per item. So in this case, $235 is what I have at $374.07. So I'm taking my average there, and it's going to give me $1.5917. Okay. So then I end up selling another 120 units. Okay. So 120 units, I need to take my average cost of 15917, and that's going to yield me a total of $191.01. So therefore, I need to subtract that out. So now I'm left with 115 units at a total cost of $183.06. So as I've mentioned before, right, you're constantly recalculating the average cost because even though you sold something at $5917 and you recalculate your average cost, it could change by that thousandth of a penny. So right here, it changed by a thousandth of a penny. It increased, right? It went from 17 to 18 now. Okay? Now, of course, that's only a thousandth of a penny. Wouldn't really make a huge difference unless you're selling thousands and thousands of units, right? Which you're a company, you're supposed to be selling thousands of units. So this can, this right here will drastically make the changes to your inventory, and it will affect it because of this. Okay? And then I end up selling another 65 units. So this time I have to calculate 65 units at 15918 because that's what my new average cost is. So then I'm going to get 103.47. Subtract that out. So now I'm left with 50 units at 79.59. And then I have to recalculate that. And then I end up actually still at 15918. Okay? And that's the end of this right here, right? So in this case, every time we purchase, we need to calculate our average cost. Every time we sell, we need to still also calculate my average cost. Okay? Any questions there?
No.
Okay. So quick review over here for the chapter 8 here. When we're dealing with perpetual FIFO, right? what you're going to be noticing is that you are going to be having an introduction for the cost of goods sold here. So we're constantly doing our cost of goods sold. And what we're doing is we are looking at our batches of inventory and we're going to sell them from the first batch that we buy. And we're going to continue to keep going all the way from the top and make our way down to the bottom. Okay? So no matter what we're at, we're always going to start taking from what we started beginning with the first purchases and slowly make our way down to the bottom. Okay?
So we're doing FIFO, not the weighted average.
I'm just reviewing everything that we learned in chapter 8.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So that's FIFO right there. Okay? We just learned about LIFO, which we talked about, right? No matter where you're at when you sell your stuff, you're constantly taking from the bottom, and you're slowly going to make your way up to the top, right? Every time you make a purchase, you're going to start all over and start from the very bottom and make your way up to the top. Okay, so that's what we learned here is that when we do LIFO, every purchase that we make, we're always constantly costing it out by selling the ones that are the most recently that we purchased. Okay, where this time, moving average, we don't care about what batch came first or what batch came last. All we care is about calculating the average cost per item. So every time we purchase something, we need to calculate an average cost because we need to tally up our totals. And the same thing with our cost of goods sold, right? We're constantly figuring out what that average cost per item is. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the exercise right here. Okay? So this one's going to go a lot fairly quicker. But what I'm going to do is I am going to do what we do in the very beginning, which is do the calculations in the middle, and then we'll take it off when we do the second one, okay? So this is what I like to do. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. Okay? We're looking at doing an inventory worksheet, okay? And here, number 1 says that your inventory is going to be perpetual and it's moving average, okay? So make sure you kind of know the slight difference, okay? A lot of people, if you don't want to use moving or weighted average, you could just refer it as average costing. They mean the same thing. As long as you have the word average in there, that's fine. In this case, we're going to be moving the average along, okay? And I'm going to show you when we go through the whole thing.
Sorry, that's what I wanted to ask you. I'm like, because I think for the periodic we had what did I say? I said weighted average.
It's weighted average because at the end of the day, right? When you reach the end of the accounting period, right? You're going to weigh the average, right? You're going to tally up your totals right then and there. Right? At the end of the accounting period, you're going to weigh them out and then figure out what the average cost per item is there. But in this case, because we're constantly buying and we're constantly selling, and every time we buy, it changes the average every single time. So in this case, that's why we're going to be moving the average along. Okay? And I'm going to show you through the inventory worksheet so it kind of makes a little more sense why we're moving the average along. Okay?
Okay.
So here on May 5th, we purchased 1,000 units at $3 each with a freight of 100. Okay? So let's go ahead and pop that in there. So we are on May 5th, right? We're going to skip over the cost of goods section because we don't need it. We purchased 1,000 units at $3 each with a freight of 100. So in this case, what is my grand total purchase? $3,000, okay? And what is my total cost? $3,100. Okay? So right now, since I only have one batch of inventory and one batch only, what is my average cost per item right now?
3.10.
$3.10, right? And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to carry this value over into my inventory on hand. Okay? Now, this is where I need you to keep in mind. Okay? The way that I'm going to put the formula in here is I'm going to have my quantity, but I'm also going to have my total cost here. All right? And what I'm going to do is my formula is going to be lying right here in my cost per item column, because this is where I'm going to set up my average cost per item formula. Okay? Where every time I enter in something that's a quantity and every time I enter something that isn't in total cost, it's going to automatically calculate for me what my average cost per item is going to be. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, right, since it's my total cost, divided by my total quantity of 1,000, I should get $3.10, which we already know, okay? Because we solved it right here in this column right here. Okay? So that's the very first one. So let's go ahead and continue, and then we'll see what happens when we end up purchasing or what happens next, okay? So on May 7, we end up selling 550 units at $10 each. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to, it's May 7, we sold 550 units, right? 550 units, right? So in this case, because my only average cost I have right now is that $3.10, right? That's all I have that I have right now. So in this case, what is my total cost of goods sold here? $17.05, okay? Now, once again, this is where your equal round formula is going to be used a lot. Now, I've been using it consistently throughout every single one, even though some of the numbers are rounded already. I'm still going to be consistent and use this, especially for moving average, because in this case, you are very unlikely going to have a rounded number. The only number that you would ever have rounded will be your very first one, okay? But after that, because we're constantly taking the average, we're calculating all of this, right? Total cost, total quantity, right? And we're constantly dividing it, you will less likely have a rounded number at the end of the day. So this equal round formula is going to come into huge play. So as I've mentioned before, right, I'm going to show you the calculations in the middle, and I'm going to show you what to do on the right side, okay? So we are going to do that, so then, when I post the answers, you know what's going on, okay? And then the next one, we'll go ahead and remove that calculation in the middle. So in this case, I just sold 550 units, which cost me $17.05, right? So in this case, I need to tally up my totals. So in this case, I had 1,000 and I sold 550. So I should be left with 450. Okay. And in this case, right, I started out with 3,100 and I sold 1705. So I should be left with 1305. Now this is where I'm going to do. So instead of calculating my average cost right here, I'm just going to go ahead and skip on over and plop this into my inventory on hand. Right now I have 450 units, and right now it's costing me a grand total of $13.95. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and solve for my average cost per item. So in this case, $13.95 divided by 450 should still give me $3.10. And what I'm going to do here is, because I have this value above right here, right? This is what I started out with. This is what I have now. Since I cell referenced, it would be dangerous to get rid of that amount right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply block it off, okay? And I'm going to block it off by just using, black. So then I don't ever see it, right? So right now, the only thing I'm focusing on is I have 450 units at a total cost of $13.95. Okay? Okay? So let's see what happened next. So here on May 10, we end up purchasing 850 units at $3.25 each with a freight of 75. So 850, 325, and 75. Okay. So it is May 10. We purchased 850 units at $3.25 with a freight of 75. Okay. So let's add up my tallies here. So what is my purchase price here?
$27.62.50.
Good. Plus my 75 freight.
$28.37.50.
$28.37.50. Good. Now in this case, I need to stop here because I just purchased inventory. I need to tally up my totals because this time I need to combine the two because I have my beginning balance of 450 units and now I need to add 850 because I just purchased it. So in this case, 450 plus 850 gives you a total 1,300. Okay. I need to add my 1395 plus my 2837.50, right? Should give me $4,232.50. Okay. So once again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop here and I'm going to pop it into my inventory worksheet on hand. Okay, saying I have 1,300 units at a total cost of $4,232.50. And now I'm going to solve for my average cost per item. Okay, so what is 4,232.50 divided by 1,300 units? What's my average cost per item here?
3.25576.
3.2. Okay, so in this case, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to extend it so you can see 3.2577769. Okay, so in this case, good. This is what I have now. The previous one is what I had before. So what I'm going to do here is, because I did cell reference, okay? I cell referenced it when I copied this over. In this case, I need to block it off because I don't care for that, okay? All I care for now is my 1,300 units at $4,232.50, okay? So then let's see what happened next. We end up selling 360 units, okay, on May 12th. Okay, May 12th, 360 units. Now in this case, what right now is my average cost per item?
3.25576.
Okay, good. So in this case, that's exactly what I need to solve for is right now, my cost for my inventory cost me $3.255769. I need to find out how much that's going to cost me in grand total if I sold 360 of those units. Okay, so what's my cost of goods sold here?
$1,172.08.
Good. So in this case, that's exactly what I need to do. I need to subtract 360 and subtract out that 1172.08. So in this case, that's going to bring me my new quantity of 940, right? 1300 minus 360 gives you 940. And I also need to subtract this out too. 4,232.50 minus the 1172.08. So that will give me 3,060 and 42 cents. Okay? That's what I am left over with. And that's exactly what I got to do. I need to copy this over. So 940 at 3,060.42, and I need to now solve for my average cost per item. So what's my average cost per item now?
$3.25576.
So in this case right here, it has decreased by 300,000 of a penny. Okay? Not that we're selling 300, we're going to sell 100,000 units, but this also makes it this also changes whether you need to round up your penny or not. Okay? So, especially when we solve for it in my cost of goods sold. So in this case, I use this number, right? I used it to solve for this, so I cannot delete this off. I need to hide it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to hide this number once again. Okay? So if you want to notice this, right? If I were to unblock all of this, what you're going to notice is you're seeing a trail of transactions here, right? You're seeing that you purchased your batches of inventory for 1,000. You sold it for 40 to you sold it to end up with 45. Then you made a purchase which increased it to 1,300, which then you sold it to decrease down to 940. So what you're going to be seeing here in your inventory on hand is basically a track record of what's going on. Are you making a purchase of inventory or are you selling your inventory? Okay, so that's what's cool about having this information here. Okay, but because I am using cell referencing, it's very dangerous to have to get rid of. So I want to make sure that I don't accidentally get rid of my information. Okay, I have to keep it because if I do end up deleting something, it's going to mess up my whole entire rest of the worksheet. Okay. So right now I'm currently at 940 at a total of 3,660 and 42 cents. So let's see what happened next. We end up selling 600 more units. Okay? So we end up selling 600 more units on May 15. Okay? 600 units. So what's my average cost per item here?
The 3.255.
Okay, good. So what's my total cost of goods sold going to be if I sold 600 units at 3.255,766?
1953.46.
Okay, good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to subtract that number out. Right? Subtract 600. So in this case, if I started out with 940 and I sold 600, I should be left with 340. Right? I'm going to start out with 3,060.42 and I just sold 1953.46. So I should be ending up with 1106.96. Once again, I'm going to pop it into my inventory worksheet on hand. So then I can figure out what my average cost per item is. So in this case, you should roughly get the same number, except, it decreased again by 100,000 of a penny. Okay, so it went from 6,600 to 6.5. Okay. Okay. So let's see what has happened next. Okay. May 20th rolls around and we end up purchasing 300 units at $3.50 each with a freight of 20. Okay, so we bought more inventory, 300 at 350 with a total freight of 20. Oh, too many numbers. 300, 350, 20. Okay, on May 20. $300, $350, $20. Okay, so in this case, what's my purchase price here?
The purchase price is $10.50 and the total cost is $10.70.
Good. Okay, so we need to add these up together because now I have a new batch of inventory. I need to figure out what my new average cost is. So in this case, for 340 plus 300 gives you 640. Okay. 1106.96 plus 1070 should give you $2,176.96. So let's pop that into my inventory here because I have 600 units. 640 at 2,176.96. And because I end up purchasing, right, and the purchase price literally went from 25 cents to 50 cents, right? That means I have a possibility of increasing it by a lot. And if you look here, exactly, we increased it by 15 cents, okay? So that's exactly what we have here. It's now $3.415, okay? And I'm going to hide this here. So we're now at 600 units, 640 units. Let's see what happens next. On May 22nd, we end up selling 450 units. $450. Okay, so right now, my 450 units, what's my current average cost per item?
3.40150.
Okay. So that will give me a total cost of goods sold to be
$15.30.66.
666.
6.675, which would be 68.
Yeah, good. Okay. So there you go. Once again, I need to subtract that I sold 450 units. So 640 minus 450 should give you 190. Right? We sold $1,530.68. So 2,176.96 minus 1530.68 should give you left a remainder of $646.28. So once again, I'm going to pop that in here because now I need to solve for my new average cost per item. Okay. Which in this case should not drastically change by that much. But here, so we got 0.15, now it's 0.147. Okay, so it dropped by 3/30,000th of a penny. May 25th rolls around and we end up purchasing 650 units. Okay. We purchased 650 units at 375 with a cost of 50, 650, 375, and 50. 650 at 375 with a freight of 50. So my purchase price here is
It is 2437.50,
okay.
and the total cost is 2487.50.
Good. So in this case, I need to add up my totals here. So 190 plus 650 should give you a total 840. Okay. And then 640, 628 plus my 2,487.50 should give you a total of 3,133.78. Okay. And you're going to pop that in once again. So 840. Add a new total cost of this. Will give you what kind of average cost? What's your total average cost now?
3.73069.
Good. Okay. I'm going to hide this now. Okay. Let's see what lastly happened on May 27th. You end up selling 740 units, leaving you with 100 units behind by May 31st. So I need to sell 740 units. So we are on May 27. We sold 740 units, right? At an average cost of 3.73. So what is my total cost of goods sold here?
2760.71.
Okay. And we need to subtract that out. So I am left with 840 minus 740 gives me 100. Okay. It's 3,133.78 minus 2,760.71 should give me an ending balance of 373.07, which if you look at this, right, the average cost here, but in this case, right, since I have 100 units and it's going to cost me 373.07. Oh, let me bring that down actually. My average cost per item is going to be 3.7307, and it stops there. Okay. Now, why is this number always constantly changing? It's because at the end of the day, when we buy our batches of inventory, we buy them at a rounded number, meaning we paid, 50 cents for this item, or, 300 and something 50 cents, right? You did not pay 304,892 something, right? You didn't pay a rounded number or unrounded number, right? You paid a straight dollar. So in this case, because we are constantly calculating it, every time we sell something, we must sell it at the rounded penny. So therefore, what we're doing is we're essentially subtracting out rounded numbers. And at the end of the day, what happens is that causes the cost per item to be unrounded because if you never, dividing something, if you divide something by 3, right, you'll never get 30, you'll never get like a third, right? You'll always get 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, right? You might get that point off wrong. And that's essentially what we're doing here. Okay, so that's exactly, this whole thing right here is a track record of what we did and how we got there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the same thing, right, with beginning inventory. And this time, we don't even need to use this middle section right here. Okay? So let's go ahead and see what happened next. So we are going to be continuing on this inventory worksheet problem. Okay? And it's still going to be perpetual, and it is still going to be moving average. However, the only difference here is that on May 31st, you had a beginning inventory of 100 units on hand, which that is true. We know that to be because of this right here, right? We solved it from our previous inventory worksheet. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and say, well, we didn't purchase anything, but as of beginning inventory, right, we still need to say that we had 100 units, and I'm going to copy this from the previous worksheet, that it cost me a grand total of $373.07. And once again, I'm going to place my formula in my cost per item so I can be constantly calculating what my average costs is going to be. Okay, so in this case, it's 3.7307. Okay. So let's go ahead and see what happened next. So here it says we end up purchasing 800 units at $4 each with a freight of 100. Okay, on June 1st. June 5th. Sorry. June 5th, we purchased 800 units at $4 each with a freight of 100. Okay. June 5th, right? We skipped over the cost of goods sold because we purchased 800 units at $4 each with a freight of 100. So in this case, what's my purchase price here?
The purchase price is $3,200 and the total cost is $3,300.
Okay. So instead of having to do the calculations here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to calculate it directly into my inventory on hand. So in this case, right, I'm going to say, well, I have a beginning inventory of 100. I just added 800 to my inventory. So how much should I actually have right now in my quantity?
The total?
Mm-hmm.
900.
You should have 900 units. So do you see that? So I just popped it into my inventory worksheet right away. Right? Instead of having to do all the calculations in the middle, I'm just going to go ahead and add them up right here. All right? And if I started out with $373.07 and I just purchased this inventory for $3,300, what's my new total cost here?
$3,673.07.
Good, right? Good. All right. So there you go. I have 900 units at $3,673.07. So then this makes it much more easier because now I'm just going to go through the motions. So in this case, I need to solve for my new average cost per item. So I need to take my 3673.07 and divide it by 900. And what do you get?
4.0811 each.
Good. So notice this, right? what I'm going to do is, that's what I'm going to have, this complete row column right here, just calculate my average cost. So every time I enter something new in my quantity and enter something new in my total cost, it's going to automatically calculate that for me. So I'm going to save you some calculation here by doing that, okay? So there you go. I hide that because I don't have 100 units anymore. I now, after purchasing this inventory, I now have 900 units. And this tells you on this day, right? When I made this purchase, I now have 900 units as of June 5th, right? So that's that right there. So let's continue on. We end up selling 350 units on June 7. Okay, so June 7, we sold 350 units. June 7, 350 units. Right now, what is my average cost per item?
4.08119.
Okay, so that's going to give me a total cost of goods sold to be
1428.70.
1428. I got 42 cents. So in this case, maybe you skipped a one.
15 times 4.08119. 40. Yeah, I did.
Okay. So it should be 42 cents. Okay. So in this case, instead of calculating it in my middle section, I'm just going to subtract it from my inventory on hand. If I had 900 units and I just sold 350, how much should I have left?
$5.50.
You have 550. Okay? And in this case, if I started out with 3673.07 and I just sold $1,428.42, how much should be my new grand total cost? So 3673.07.
2,244.65.
Good. 224465. And because I already did the average cost, you should be at 408118. Okay. So what I can do here is, because I cell reference, I can't get rid of that, but I can hide it. There you go. And this eliminates clutter, eliminates space, because all you're doing is just adding and subtracting. Not very difficult. You're adding to the previous or you're subtracting from the previous. So this makes it a lot more easier because, again, you don't need to focus on what came first or what came last. Okay? So let's see what happened next. We end up purchasing on June 10 an additional 750 units at $425 with a freight of $75. Okay. June 10, we purchased 750 units at $4.25 with a freight of $75. So what is my purchase price here?
$31.87.50.
Plus my freight of 75.
$32.62.50.
Good. So now I need to add up my totals. So what is 550 plus 750.
1,300.
1,300 units. Okay, what is 2244.65? Okay, plus 3262.50.
5,507.15.
5,507.15. Excellent. So in this case, right, I have 1,300 at 5,507.15, which will give me a new average cost of 4.23627. Okay. All right. So let's see what happened next. We end up selling 450 units on June 12th. 450 units on June 12th. 450 units. Okay. Average cost is the 4.23627. So in this case, what's my total cost of goods sold?
$1906.32.
1906.32. Good. So let's go ahead and subtract those numbers out because I no longer have 1,300 units, right? I sold 450 of them. So 1,300 minus 450.
850.
850, right? $5,507.15. Okay, minus the 1906.32. Right. What's your new total cost here?
3,600 with 83 cents.
Good. So my average cost, right, has not changed. So that's good. Okay. So let's see what then happened next. You end up selling on June 15 another 500 units. So in this case, June 15, we sold another 500 units at $4.23.62. Okay? So what is my cost per item? I mean, cost of goods sold here.
$2,118.14.
Good. Okay. So again, now I need to subtract more because this time I purchased and I sold. So in this case, I need to adjust my inventory accordingly because now I decreased it. So I started out with 850 and I sold 500. So I should be left with
350.
350. Okay. I started out with 2,683 cents. And I just sold a 21.1814. So I should have a new total cost of
1482.69.
1482.69. Okay. Right. So let's keep on going. All right. So then on June 20th, I end up purchasing 600 units at 405 with a freight of 20. So June 20th. We purchased 600 units at 405 with a rate of 20. So what is my purchase price here?
$24.30 and total cost $24.50.
Right, good. So because I made a purchase, I need to add it to my inventory. So 350 plus 600, right, gives you a total of
$9.50.
950 units. Okay. We have a total cost of $1482.69, and we just are adding 2,450 to give me my new total cost of
$3,683.
30.
Oh, what did I do? Oh, I'm doing the 950 times 4.1.
950 times 4 point. No, we can't do that because we just purchased inventory. So it's gonna, you just have to add
The 1482 plus the
2450.
okay.
Yeah, because we after you solve for this one, then you need to solve for the average cost, which does give you 4.1396. But you have to have your totals first before you can be able to calculate that. This number's not going to be given.
Okay. Yeah, I accidentally did the 2118.
Got it. Okay. There you go. So there you go. There we have it. Our new average cost has decreased, which, oh yeah, because you went from $4.25 down to 105. So it should change. It should drop. All right, let's see what's next. So then you end up selling 250 units. Okay, 250 units. You sold 250 units on June 22nd. Okay, so right now, my average cost, okay, is currently at 1.13967. So that should give me a cost of goods sold to be
$1,034.92.
1,034.92. Okay. So we need to update our inventory because we sold some. So we started out with 950 and we sold 250. So you should have how much should you have left?
700.
You should have 700. Okay. We started out with $3,932.69 and we sold $1,034.92. So what's your new total cost?
$2,897.77.
Good, right? Which does not decrease your average cost here. So then on June 25th, you purchased 350 units at $4.35 each with a freight of 50. Okay. So it is June 25th. We purchased 350 units at $4.35 each with a freight of 50. Okay.
1522.50 and 1572.50.
Okay. So now we gotta add it to my average because, or add it to my quantity. So 700 plus 350,
1050.
1050. Good. All right. We have 2,897.77, and we're gonna add the 1572.50.
4470 with 27.
Good. Which will change your average cost because we just purchased, right? We went from a 405 to 435. So that will definitely increase your average cost per item. So in this case, if I took my 4,470 and 27 cents divided by my 1050, right, my total quantity, I should get 4.25740. Okay. Okay. And then let's see what happened last but not least. Okay, so on June 27, you end up selling 550 units, which left you with 500 units at the end of June 30th. So 550 units is what you sold to leave you with 500 units left. Oh, wrong one. I'm on this one. Okay, so we are on June 27. We sold 550 units right now at $4.2574. So that should give me a cost of goods sold to be
2341 with 57.
good. And we're going to subtract that out. So if you had 1050 and you sold 550, how much should you have left?
500.
500. And if you had a total of $4,470.27 and you sold $2,341.57, how much should you have left?
2128.70.
Good. Excellent. Okay. All right. And then last but not least, we just got to cover this up because we don't need it anymore. All right. So out of all the methods that we looked at, which one do you think is the easiest or you prefer the most?
Definitely the moving average.
Yeah, it's much more easier, right? Because all we're doing is this is the thing about moving average, right? It is a little tedious because you are bouncing back and forth. You're always constantly calculating over and over and over again. But at the end of the day, you don't need to keep track of how many you have left. You don't need to have to keep an eye on certain batches of inventory because they have a split penny. In this case, you're just calculating it right off, right? And then on top of that, the third thing too is you don't need to know what came first, what came last, and keeping track of which one and then having to calculate the total of that. You're just looking at one number and one number only. And you're constantly, every time you purchase, boom. Every time you sell, boom. So in this case, moving average is going to be one of the more easiest ones. And it's also one of the more common ones to use in business because you don't have to deal with all those numbers. But again, it depends on which costing method works best for your store, right? If you do sell grocery items, maybe you shouldn't use the average costing because, you technically can't just average out your bananas, right? Because bananas,
Right. It would definitely be
it would
the price.
definitely be FIFO, right? You got to sell the ones that you first bought first. But in this kind of case, right, when we're looking at a small business, a lot of businesses actually do average costing more often than they do anything else, right? So that is it for chapter